The O'Reilly Factor is on tonight. A Factor World exclusive inside Guantanamo Bay, the most controversial prison in the world.
If that button is pressed, within 3 to 5 seconds, all available MPs will respond to the situation.
For the first time, you will hear from the American interrogators who sit across from the al-Qaeda terrorists.
When you hear and read in the press that this place is a torture chamber, what runs through your mind?
And we'll take a look at the charges of torture. Caution, you are about to enter a no-spin zone. The Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Inside Guantanamo Bay, that's the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo and most of the Factor. Just hours after I left the prison at Gitmo last Friday, 3 detainees committed suicide, the first fatalities at the camp since it was set up shortly after 9/11. The Joint Army-Navy Task Force granted the Factor almost total access to the prison, and ironically, I asked the colonel in charge of the cells why some of the detainees had covered the small windows that allowed guards to observe them. The colonel replied that the International Red Cross wants as much privacy for the prisoners as possible. That privacy may have allowed the suicides. The Guantanamo controversy is easy to define. The Bush administration seized the 460 detainees as prisoners of war. The liberal press and some human rights groups believe they are criminals entitled to due process. The Joint Task Force in Gitmo, more than 1,000 military people, do not make policy. They institute it. So the bulk of my reporting tonight is not about the political controversy. It's about the prison itself. Although some have called Gitmo a place where torture is practiced, there is no proof of that on the record. It is true that Mohammed al-Qahtani, thought to be directly involved with the 9/11 attack, was treated harshly. Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld ordered that Qahtani could be subjected to coerced interrogation, including loud noise, the presence of a dog, and sleep deprivation. But outside of that, the detainees at Gitmo have been treated humanely, the military says. They have access to the International Red Cross and civilian lawyers. Many live in air-conditioned cells. The average detainee has gained 18 pounds since entering Gitmo, and the USA spends 3 times as much on their food as on military food. The Factor was given rare access to the prison camp. We were just yards away from some of the prisoners who noted our presence. That prisoner screaming in Arabic. Obviously, the military showed us what they wanted us to see. But again, there's absolutely no evidence that I've seen that says any abuse is taking place at Guantanamo Bay. Nevertheless, the left continues to call for the prison to be closed. People like Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi are adamant about it. But where do we send these people? They'd be executed inside civilian prisons, and why shift them to a military prison inside the USA? There's no reason to do that. So at this point, 10 detainees have been charged with war crimes. More than 300 are deemed dangerous to the USA, and about 140 have been designated for release, but few countries want to take them. 279 Gitmo prisoners have already been set free. Few of them went on to commit murder. For example, a Gitmo jihadist blew up a Marriott hotel in Pakistan shortly after the USA repatriated him back to that country. So Talking Points is convinced Guantanamo Bay is being run correctly and that it is necessary for the security of this nation. And that's the memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction to the Gitmo suicides. Today, the New York Times once again called for the prison to be shut down. The paper also criticized Gitmo commander Admiral Harry Harris, who I talked with on the phone. Did it go down the way I said, that there was a blockage of view and these guys just hung themselves behind some laundry?
Hey, sir, I'm not going to get into the specifics right now. As you might know, if not, I'm going to tell you. There's an ongoing investigation. It's an independent, autonomous investigation. It's run by the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, but it is not a criminal investigation. It's a death investigation. But your name, and I'm sure you know this, was bannered around by the New York Times today. And I want to read you the quote, and you can react to it. Admiral Harris's response to the suicides was appalling, says the New York Times. Quote, I believe this was not an act of desperation, but an act of
asymmetrical warfare waged against us. He said, the inmates have no regard for life, neither ours nor their own. And then the New York Times says in their editorial, these comments reveal a profound disassociation with humanity. They say more about why Guantanamo Bay should be closed than any United Nations report ever could. How do you respond? Do you want to, first of all, explain what asymmetrical warfare is?
Sure, Mr. O'Reilly. Asymmetrical warfare is the idea that in a war between two entities, the lesser entity will use completely unorthodox and perhaps illegal means to try to gain an upper hand or the upper hand. And that's clearly what I believe that we're seeing today in Iraq, Afghanistan, and here in Guantanamo.
Now, you believe that these guys committed suicide because they felt that their suicide would help the jihad and hurt the USA?
That's what I believe. You know, I can't get into the mind of the individual detainee here, especially those that unfortunately are dead. But I believe in the broad picture, you are absolutely correct. And I've said before that I believe that this is not an act of desperation, and it's not an act of despair. It's a determined, committed, purposeful act in order for them to gain what they believe is the upper hand, not only in Guantanamo, but in the greater global war on terror.
Okay.
Now, if you want, I'll comment on your question about the New York Times editorial.
Okay.
I believe that the Times is trying to have it both ways. First, you know, they criticize us for not allowing hunger strikers to strike until they're dead. And then they criticize us because 3 enemy combatants did manage to kill themselves by hanging. Secondly, I think their comment that I'm somehow disassociated, you know, from humanity, I find that comment interesting, but entirely wrong. This editorial reveals to me a profound disassociation with the reality of what is happening in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, out there, suicide is an acceptable and even encouraged weapon in al-Qaeda's extremist jihadist arsenal. You know, out there, the suicide bombers are praised. They're praised for killing themselves along with unarmed women and children and normal Iraqis who are trying to improve the conditions of their homeland. And we see that here as well.
All right, so this is, in your opinion, just another act of war.
That's what I believe. You're correct.
That's an exclusive interview with the commander of Guantanamo Bay. And when we come back, the Factor World exclusive. The first time a U.S. military interrogator who sits across from al-Qaeda killers will explain exactly what he does. That report, moments away.